Good morning and happy holidays to those in attendance, including committee, applicants and agents, members of the public and staff. Today's hearing is the first hearing of Committee of Adjustment under this current term of council, and I would like to welcome each of our appointed members of committee. Councillor Edwards and Mr. Quinn are each returning as members, and Ms. Bridgman and Ms. Brown are each new members. Under Section 44 of the Planning Act, members of committee appoint a chair, an acting chair of Committee of Adjustment, and hence today's first order of business is for committee to appoint a chair and acting chair. I hereby call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. on December 12th, 2022, and I would turn this over to the Township's Committee of Adjustment Coordinator, Kitty Babington, to continue with the process of appointing a chair and deputy chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now appoint a chair and a acting chair. Do I have any nominations for the position of chair of the committee? Member Bridgman?
Nominate
Sound went out.
Do I have a seconder?
The sound went out. I didn't hear what Bridgman said.
Am I back on? Go ahead. Councillor Bridgman nominated Mr. Edwards, Councillor Edwards for chair. Do I have a seconder? Member Quinn is going to second that. Do I have any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, nominations are now closed and Councillor Edwards is acclaimed as chair. Do I have any nominations for acting chair? Member Edwards?
I would like to nominate member Bridgman.
Bridgman? Do I have a seconder? Member Quinn seconds that. Are there any other nominations?
No.
Seeing none, Member Bridgman is acclaimed as acting chair. The elections are now completed and I'll turn the podium over to the chair, Mr. Edwards. Oh, Member Edwards.
Thank you very much. And that. And have a resolution. And need this is to be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment Coordinator be appointed Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, and in their absence, that the Committee of Adjustment authorize the Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability or their designated to fill the duties on a temporary basis. So I would like to and that nominate Kitty Babington. And could I have a seconder for that, please? Okay. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Appoint an acting secretary treasurer as well.
Yeah.
That would be authorized by the director.
Yeah, I think that was right in the motion that we put the Director of Development Service.
Okay.
and environmental sustainability. That's a long title he's got there.
He has a big job.
A big job, yeah. Okay. So moved by member Quinn, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated December 12th, 2022 be adopted. All those in favor? And that is carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? No. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Brown. Be it resolved, the minutes dated November 7th, 2022 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Okay, and the first application is B5522 ML and A9922 Murby, and that is Miss Mulholland. Morning.
Good morning, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of committee. The next applications to be heard are concurrent consent and minor variance applications B5522ML and A9922 in the name of Murby. The subject lands are known municipally as 1440 Moon River Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketches on pages 27 and 28 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the applications are as follows. Severance application B5522ML has been submitted to sever lands that have merged. In September 2021, consent application B4221ML to undertake a lot addition was granted by a committee of adjustment. The lot addition was finalized, however, the resultant and retained lots inadvertently merged. The purpose of the current application is to achieve the intended lot configuration granted in 2021. Minor variance application A9922 was submitted concurrently for relief from the minimum lot frontage requirement of 300 feet in a waterfront residential WR5-7 zone. The retained lot has 122 feet of lot frontage and the severed lot has 290 feet of lot frontage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance of today's hearing, and 4 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from the District of Muskoka, Nick Snyder, the Township Chief Building Official, and Sandy Boss, Township Building Inspector, with no objections. Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Work Technician, noted that emergency services may have limited or unavailable access to the severed lot as it does not have frontage on a Township maintained road. These comments were circulated to committee prior to today's meeting and can be read in full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and recommend approval. If committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following conditions. 1, that a registrable description deed on the severed lot and any required rights of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan, and that a minor variance be approved to recognize the lot frontage of the severed and retained lots. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Chair, it's Sidney Troyster. I am involved in this matter. Mr. Roth filed the application. I don't see him appearing on the screen, and I don't know if he has given you any notice that he wanted to speak. I understood that he was going to. It's basically a repeat of a decision that was made last year, and unfortunately the application was submitted in an odd way, and as a result, when it was to be implemented, it could not be implemented, and as a result, it was necessary to bring a fresh application. I see Mr. Ross is online now, and he may wish to speak further.
Yes, I think Rachel has set out generally what the problem was. We used the consent. It was a one-time only consent to consolidate the parcel as required by the last Committee of Adjustment hearing in September 2021. And when we came to transfer the property to a purchaser, the third party, we were unable to do so without a new consent. And that's why we're making the application for the technical consent. As Rachel has indicated, the Committee of Adjustments in September 2021 thoroughly went through it all and gave consent to this severance previously. I don't know if the committee has any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. As was indicated in the report, page 27 and 28 of the report set out the details of the severed and the retained portion of land. Are there any questions? Perhaps I can ask, we can deal with it that way.
Are there any questions from the members? Saying none, no, I'll ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application?
Mr. Murby.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
No, John Murby is here to speak.
Pardon?
The
The applicant is here to speak.
John
Okay.
Murby.
Yeah, bring them in. Did we get the name and address of the last speakers?
No, we didn't.
Okay, that's what I thought. I would just,
We didn't get the name or the address.
okay, just for our records, could each of the gentlemen give us your name, address, and postal code, please?
Sure. My name is Larry Ross. I'm the lawyer for the applicant. My address is 609 Bloor Street West, Suite 200, Toronto, Ontario, M6G 1K5.
And I am Sidney Troyster. I am assisting Mr. Roth on the application. My address is Suite 1500, 151 Yonge Street, Toronto, M5C2W7.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Murby is going to speak.
And is the other gentleman in now, Alec?
He's in, yeah.
Okay. Would you like to speak, Mr. Albee?
I don't think he can hear you. Can you speak louder?
Pardon? Okay,
Ask
sorry.
Mr. Murby.
Would the owner like to speak on this, please? Okay, sir, go ahead. You see your hand up?
Yes, good morning. It's John Murby. Just want to confirm that this is the same process that occurred 15 months ago, and I think it was well received then, and I would anticipate that the same thing will happen this year. I hope you see the merits in this, which I did, and it will receive your approval.
His address. Ask him for his address.
And we need your name, address, and postal code, please.
John Murby, 100761 Richview Road, Etobicoke, Ontario, Mary 9, Adam 4, Mary 8.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none? Moved by member Brown, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 5522 ML Murby, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, the illegible description deed of the severed lot and any required right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. And 2, that a minor variance be approved to recognize the lot frontage of the severed and retained lots. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, and just the second one now. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that application A 9922 Murby to recognize the resultant lot frontages is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot frontage of 122 feet for the retained lot on application B 5522 ML Murby, and 2, to permit a lot frontage of 290 feet on the severed lot in application B 5522 ML Murby. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. And the next application is B 313222 ML Heisman. And that is Rachel Mahoney.
Hello again. Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next applications to be heard are consent applications B 313222 ML in the name of Heinzman and Connell. The subject lands are known municipally as 26 and 28 Bailey Street. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 57 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the applications are summarized as followed. In application B 313222 ML, James and Joanne Heinzman proposed to grant an easement for a water line, easement number 1, over part of their property, retained lot number 1, in favor of property owned by Margot Fraser, the benefiting lot. In application B 3222 ML, Karen Connell proposes to grant an easement for a water line and water shutoff valve, easement number 2, and an easement for a sump pump drain pipe, easement number 3, over part of the property, retained lot 2, in favor of property owned by Margot Fraser, the benefiting lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of today's hearing, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township Chief Building Official, Sandy Boss, Township Building Inspector, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, all stating no objections. These comments were circulated to committee prior to today's meeting and can be read in full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no objection. If committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following condition: that a registrable description deed of the severed lots, easements, be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or application here wishing to speak on this?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Can we have your name and address, please?
I am Margot Fraser. My address is 32 Bailey Street, Port Carling. P0B1J0.
Okay. And what would you like to say?
I am the benefiting property owner of the water line which crosses the Heinzman and Connell property.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you then. Is there anyone else here to speak on this application? Are there questions from the members? No? Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 3122 ML Heinzman and B 3222 ML Connell, providing the following condition is fulfilled. 1, that a registral description deed of the several lots easements be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. Are there any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, well, thank you very much. You have your easement. The next application is A 4022 ML, and that's 2407951 Ontario Inc. And that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of committee. The next application to be heard is consent application B4022 in the name of 2407951 Ontario Incorporated. The subject lands are known municipally as 1101 Barlocken Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 74 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is as follows: to create one additional residential lot with frontage on District Road 30, otherwise known as Barlocken Road. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, stating that District Road 30 is under the jurisdiction of the District of Muskoka and that the district should be consulted, including District Engineering and Public Works. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that they have no objection to the application. Comments have been received from Sandy Boss, the Township Septic Inspector, stating that both the severed and retained lots have area for on-site sewage system development. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, stating that they are not opposed to the application, provided the following are implemented as conditions of consent. That the appropriate development control techniques are used to ensure development occurs outside areas of high-risk wildland fire hazard. The lands be subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road, and the applicant to obtain written confirmation from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit can be issued for the proposed severed and retained lots for access onto the district road. Staff would note that the condition to ensure development occurs outside areas of high-risk wildland fire hazard can be covered off by the condition to implement the 30-meter required setback from the wetland, which includes the area of high wildland fire hazard risk included in the scoped environmental impact study. Additionally, the resolution would require an amendment to include the requested condition to include the location of wells in relation to the district road in the recommended consent agreement under Section 5126 of the Planning Act. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions: that a registrable description of the severed lot and any required right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed lot is satisfactory for on-site sewage, that the availability of an entrance permit be confirmed by the District Municipality of Muskoka Public Works and Engineering Department for the severed and retained lots, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire lands, whichever is less, and that a consent agreement be entered into and registered on title under Section 5126 of the Planning Act, wherein the applicant owner agrees to implement the recommendations of the scoped environmental impact study prepared by Azimuth Environmental Consulting Incorporated and dated October 2022. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And is the applicant or an applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Okay, bring them in, please. Okay, thank you.
Hi there. My name is Mallory Nieves. I'm the planner on behalf of the applicant. I do have a short presentation just to run a committee through. I'm wondering if I can have ability to share my screen.
You have a name and address.
Well, first of all, we need your name and address, and we don't have that ability.
No, she needs to send us the presentation.
We'd have to send it to us. And then
Oh,
we can
it was sent to Emily.
Okay. And we need your name, address, and postal code, please.
Thank you. My name is Mallory Nieves. My address is 1288 Pharmacy Avenue in the city of Toronto, and my postal code is M1R2J2.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, committee. My name is Mallory Nieves from Weston Consulting, and we are the planning consultant for the applicant. I'm just going to take you through a short presentation of the proposed consent application. Next slide. Thank you. So the subject property is located west of the Barlocan and Marina Drive intersection within the township of Muskoka Lakes. The property has an area of 11.89 hectares and has approximately 690 meters of frontage on Barlocan Road. The lot is vacant and consists of forested areas and some wetland areas as noted that will be further described. And the prevailing context and character of the area is of a rural area with seasonal tourism and permanent dwellings consisting of large parcels of land. Next slide. The subject property is designated rural according to the District of Muskoka Lakes official plan. Next slide. And the property is also designated rural low density area 2 in the township official plan. Next slide. The property is zoned rural 2 according to zoning bylaw 2014-14. Official plan and zoning bylaw mapping shows that the existing context is comprised of a variety of parcel shapes and sizes. The proposed severance parcel will have an area of 1.41 hectares and the retained parcel will have an area of 10.488 hectares. Next slide. The proposed consent application and the resulting severed parcel and retained parcel meet the policies of both the District of Muskoka official plan and Muskoka Township official plan. The District of Muskoka plan requires new lots to be no smaller than 0.4 hectares and are encouraged to be at least 1 hectare, with lots with frontage on a Class B roadway are required to have frontages of a minimum of 135 meters. The Township of Muskoka Lakes OP requires a minimum frontage of 100 meters and a minimum lot area of 1 hectare. The severed and retained lots will have frontage on a public road that is maintained all year, and they will facilitate the development of single detached dwellings, which are permitted under the applicable planning framework. As such, the low density development pattern will be maintained in the rural area. Additionally, the proposed consent and conceptual placement of the single detached dwellings protect natural features. Next slide. As you can see, the retained parcel is located within the northern portion of the original lot and the severed parcel is located to the south. The wetland area that traverses the retained parcel is avoided as the proposed dwelling is located to the north of the wetland, proposing a 40.5 meter buffer. Additionally, the proposed dwelling location on the severed lot avoids a rock crop out. As part of the application, a scoped environmental impact assessment was prepared by Azimuth Environmental. The EIS states that the proposed locations of the single detached dwellings are able to have greater buffers than are required from the wetland located on site, and that there are alternative placings of the dwellings that can still meet the required setbacks and buffer areas. The submitted EIS concludes that the proposed severance of the lands is supportable and will have no negative impact, assuming that mitigation strategies are implemented. Next slide. In addition, as part of the application, a zoning review was provided that confirms that the proposed severed and retained lots and conceptual dwelling locations conform to the applicable zoning standards as it relates to minimum lot frontage, minimum lot area, maximum lot coverage, setbacks, and minimum gross floor area. In summary, the proposed consent to sever application conforms to the hierarchy of planning policies that apply to the subject property, and we welcome its approval by committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe the owner would like to speak as well. Yes, sir. We need your name, address, and postal code, and then you may speak.
Hi, my name is Frank Monachino from 555-272 Mono Amaranth Town Line in Amaranth, L9W0T3. So I fully agree with what Mallory presented, and I thank council for all their consideration in this severance.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Okay. Any questions from the members?
You have to amend that one condition. You have to add a condition.
Okay. Which one would you like to add?
Just with respect to the District Road and wells. So if you'd like me to add the condition.
Yeah, you can add it right
Okay.
now. Can read it. Just 1 second.
Should be the king.
Well, you're not king yet. It hasn't been crowned, and that's why the black ribbon's on there. Just a little royal.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I've added a condition with respect to an agreement with the district municipality and the location of wells on the property in relation to the district road. So I'll pass this back over to you for reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 4022 ML for 2407951 Ontario Limited, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. One, that a registrable description deed of the separate lot and any required right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. Two, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the separate and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal. Three, that the availability of the entrance permit be confirmed by the District Municipality of Muskoka Public Works and Engineering Department for the severed and retained lots. And, excuse me, the cash in lieu parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. 5, that a consent agreement be entered into and registered on title under section 5126 of the Planning Act, wherein the applicant owner agrees to implement the recommendations by the scope environmental impact study prepared by the environmental consultant and dated October 22, and 6, that the lands be subject to an amendment with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO, and as amended, restricting the location of wells in relation to the district road. And are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
The next application is A 5922, and that's Ms. Crowder, I think.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 5922 in the name of Murby. The subject lands are known municipally as 1086 Penwood Road, Unit 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on pages 130 and 131 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is as follows: to construct a porch addition onto an existing dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The following comments were received and have been circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating that they have no objection to the application. A letter of support was received from Mark Shankman, adjacent property owner, and a second letter of support was received from Don Burwell. These comments can be read in full at the request of committee. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And I see we have Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Good morning. It's nice to see you back in the chair. My name is Ryan Allen. I am the agent representing Frank and Jennifer Murby for their variance application today. Thank you, Ms. Crowder, for your thorough report and positive recommendation. I would like to share, I would not like to share my screen because I can't, but if my presentation could be queued up, I do have some few slides that I'd like to move forward fairly quickly. The subject lands, as mentioned, are at 1086.
Mr. Allen, could you
give the address? Thank you. 104 Kimberley Ave, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1Z8, and I'm with Planscape. The subject lands are at 1086 Penwood Road, unit number 3, as Ms. Crowder mentioned, on Lake Muskoka, just outside of Port Carling. Next slide, please. Here's a location of the subject property. Next slide. As mentioned, the application is related to permit a covered porch addition located above an existing sun deck with a setback of 2.9 meters. I would note that the existing dwelling is set back very close to the shoreline today at 2.2 meters. The existing sun deck is 0 meters from the shoreline, and the variance requested is 12.3 meters. Next slide, please. You'll see an enlarged section of the site plan on the left, the full site plan on the right. There are multiple redevelopment or buildings to be redeveloped as part of this application. The first along the shoreline, the existing dock and boathouse will be removed and new dock and boathouse constructed. The existing overwidth dock will be reduced in width to comply with the bylaw and actually will be built less than the maximum width. And the same with the boathouse itself, will be moved closer towards the center of the lot. The dock and the boathouse comply fully with the bylaw and are not part of the application. There's 3 additions proposed to the existing cottage. There's a small addition at the back. It's a bit of an entranceway. And then there's a 2nd-story addition to the right side of the building. The 2nd-story addition is set back 50 feet from the shoreline, and that complies with the bylaw. The 3rd addition, which is the proposed screen porch, is located close to the shoreline and therefore doesn't comply with the minimum setback. And it's approximately 270 square feet for those that would appreciate not using the metric system. Next slide, please. So photos of the property. This is coming down the driveway, the rear of the existing dwelling, and the boathouse on to the right. Next slide, please. This is the existing deck where the proposed covered porch will be located, and we've shown an outline of approximately the location of that covered porch. Next slide. This is the existing dock and the existing cottage and deck that are very close to the shoreline. You'll see the orientation of the cottage relative to the shoreline and the location of the screen porch. Most of it is tucked around a bit of a corner, so there's only a portion of the building that will be visible from directly from the lake. Next slide, please. This is the buffer located in front of the area where the 2nd-story addition is proposed. There is some lawn area that is located along the shoreline area, and staff have recommended some revegetation and plantings in that location, and we're agreeable with that condition. Next slide, please. This is the boathouse that will be removed and reconstructed closer to the existing new part of the dock that was recently replaced. Next slide, please. And some of the neighboring properties with their 2-story boathouses. Next slide, please. In terms of planning analysis, I would offer that the covered porch is located over an existing deck. No tree removal or site alteration is required to undertake that addition. The setback is greater for the addition than the existing dwelling and sun deck, which is positive. The existing shoreline buffer will be maintained and enhanced through the development agreement. The covered porch is relatively small in size at 271 square feet and is only 1 story in height. The zoning bylaw permits a substantial amount of additional development within the 50-foot setback, up to almost 200 square meters. The additions proposed on this application are slightly more than 26 square meters. I think it's important to also note that the zoning bylaw permits an 18 square meter gazebo, which is slightly smaller than the size of the proposed screen porch. However, a gazebo can be set back as close as 1 meter from the shoreline. The proposed setback is almost 3 times as much as a gazebo would be permitted. The porch, as I mentioned, is partly screened by the existing dwelling. The new boathouse will also help screen that the visual appearance of the new addition, limiting its appearance overall from the lakeside views. The new dock and boathouse, the 2nd-story addition, all comply with the zoning bylaw. The covered porch is located above the flood elevation of Muskoka, and the official plan permits reduced setbacks for existing development. Next slide, please. It would be my professional opinion that the proposed variance meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act and represents good planning. Be happy to have happy to answer any questions you have, and look forward to the committee supporting the application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone against? Nope. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Member Quinn. Oh, can't hear you.
I think I'm there. This building is set pretty close to the water, and Mr. Ryan talked about the potential or this Muskoka room that they would. I guess where I'm going with this, is there any way to restrict that they don't get a gazebo in addition to this if we approve this through time?
Look into that. Just 1 second.
Thank you, Member Quinn. It's a good question. A minor variance application grants one-time relief. In other words, it permits an applicant one-time relief in order to proceed with applying for a building permit, unlike a zoning bylaw amendment application that tends to run with the land and actually amends the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. And through that process, you can restrict buildings and structures forward into the future, unlike a variance. So it'd be very difficult through this process to impose that type of restriction, unless, of course, committee was interested in requiring a condition that would require the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment to restrict buildings and structures on the property. And the applicant would then be forced to apply under a separate process in order to do that, to fulfill the condition. The other thing I would add, and I see that Mr. Allen has his hand raised, I would look to Mr. Allen perhaps to confirm what the overall proposed lot coverage on the property is. And it may be at or nearing the 10% maximum, meaning that if this development were to proceed and it was built, that no further roof buildings or structures would be permitted on the property as of right. Of course, unless it was redeveloped, but I would look to Mr. Allen to clarify that point for me. Thank you.
Mr. Allen, would you like to comment on that, please?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards. I don't have, I'm scrambling to find the lot coverage percentage that's proposed, but I can tell you that the applicants do not have plans on constructing a gazebo. This structure is effectively the gazebo, the screen porch that is located close to the shoreline. They don't have the need for another sitting area that is close to the shoreline. If you will bear with me, just give me a second here while I track down the.
I believe I may be able to help here.
Well, thank you, Emily.
Yeah, no worries. Through my review of the application, the proposed lot coverage is at 10%. So I don't believe further covered structures would be permitted as of right.
Thank you for clarifying, Ms. Crowder. Member Quinn, hopefully that addresses your addition. They don't have a need for one, and they're not able to construct one if the development proceeds to use the entire available coverage.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? None. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 5922 Murby to permit a porch addition onto an existing dwelling is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a front yard setback of 9 feet at the closest point from the front lot line high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, committee. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. And the next applicant is A 6822, and that is Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of the committee. Some familiar faces, and also hello to Member Brown, who I have not met before, but it's a pleasure to meet you here today virtually. I'm the senior planner here at the township, and the first application I'm introducing here today is minor variance application A6822 in the name of Trays. The subject property is known as 1174 Clear Lake Road. And I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 593 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to demolish an existing single-story dwelling, a sleeping cabin, and several sheds, and then to construct a new two-story dwelling, a new one-story garage that is connected to be connected to the dwelling by a covered breezeway, and a new single-story storage building. Relief is requested from the maximum permitted lot coverage amount. The property fronts onto a category 4 lake where the maximum permitted coverage amount is 8%, and the proposed coverage is 4,025 square feet or 8.8%, and therefore a variance of 351 square feet over the permitted maximum is requested. Relief is also requested from front yard setback requirements for the dwelling. Although the proposed setback of 37.5 feet from Clear Lake is an improvement over the setback of the existing dwelling, the amount of the proposed height increase at this setback is greater than permitted. This height increase would only be permitted at a setback of 50 feet, and therefore an exemption is requested. Relief is also requested from front yard setback requirements for the proposed detached garage. The zoning bylaw requires a setback of 66 feet, and a setback of 41 feet is proposed. Relief is also requested from the setback requirements for the proposed storage building. The easterly side yard side lot line is an exterior side lot line and also abuts an unopened road allowance. A setback of 30 feet is required from this lot line, and a setback of 25 feet from the road allowance. And therefore variances are requested, as is the storage building is to be located 17.5 feet from this lot line, and therefore the variances are requested. As is explained in the staff report, this variance for the side yard setback was inadvertently omitted from the circulated notice. However, given that the setback requirement from the road allowance is more restrictive, staff feel that the notice has been properly circulated and that this additional variance can be considered. Relief is also requested from the front yard setback requirements for the leaching bed distribution pipe of a replacement septic system. The replacement system is to be set back 72.5 feet from the high water mark, which is less than the existing system by 8.5 feet. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 4 submissions have been received. These comments were forwarded to committee prior to today's meeting. Alan Waters from 1174 Clear Lake Road, which is the abutting property to the west, submitted comments in support. Nancy Polito from 1002 Hill Road, which is the abutting property to the east, also submitted comments in support. And the township's Public Works Department advised that the property currently contains 2 entrances onto Clear Lake Road, and that the westerly entrance is to be removed and restored to the township's satisfaction. Public Works staff also provided a general comment with regards to setbacks from the township's unopened road allowances to advise that reduced setbacks can impact future use, and that reductions have the potential to present future maintenance issues due to the increased costs associated with tree maintenance. And therefore, Public Works prefers that required setbacks are achieved if possible. The township's Development Services Division has advised that they have no concerns. And I prepared a detailed staff report for committee's consideration, and staff have recommended approval, subject to 3 conditions. The first being that the owner enters into a development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act, and provides securities for the retention of vegetation, for new plantings, and for implementation of a water quality impact assessment that has been submitted in support of the application. The second condition requires the removal and restoration of the westerly existing entrance onto Clear Lake Road, and the third condition requires the removal of the existing sheds as intended. And I have no further comments at this time, but would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soya. And I see the owner is here, and also you have somebody from planning. Who would like to speak first?
I'll speak first. Thank you, Chair. So good morning, Chair and committee members. April Beth Serreris from Marie Poirier Planning and Associates. For the record, we're located at 44 King William Street, Unit A in Huntsville, Ontario, P1H1G3. So thank you, committee, for taking the time to hear this application today and giving us the opportunity to speak to it. And I'd like to thank Mr. Soya for all his work on this application, and also staff's recommendation for approval. So I'll keep my presentation brief, really just highlighting the main points of justification for the proposal. But overall, the application before committee today proposes the demolition of the existing cottage with attached deck, as well as 4 sheds on the property, and the construction of a new dwelling with attached covered porch, which leads to a proposed single-story garage, as well as a storage building to the rear of the property. So staff have outlined already a number of variances. However, as I will outline in my presentation today, this is due to the fact that the lot depth of the property constrains the existing legal non-complying development, as well as any sort of redevelopment of the property. So the main points I'll highlight is the proposed redevelopment will reduce the number of structures on the property from 6 to 3, so consolidating development. The redevelopment will result in overall reduction in built form within 15 meters of the shoreline, which is really beneficial from a shoreline buffer perspective and being a net improvement over the existing situation. So reduce the amount of development within 15 meters of the shoreline by about 613 square feet, so over 600 square feet reduction. The proposed dwelling will be pushed back farther from the shoreline than the existing dwelling. So the existing is at 3.9 meters and proposed at 11.6 meters. So that's an increase of 7.7 meters from the shoreline. And this provides improved buffering of built form to reduce visual impacts when you're viewing the development from the shore or from the water. The property has an irregular shape whereby approximately a third of the property is a narrow strip of land and a steep rock embankment, making this portion of the property challenging to develop. So as a result, this area is proposed to remain natural, and then the development is proposed in the already level and cleared area that's appropriate. The property is narrow between Clear Lake Road and Clear Lake with limited lot depth, making it challenging to meet all the required setbacks while also being functional for the use of the buildings. So in regards to the proposed lot coverage of 8.8%, where 8% is the maximum permitted for the property, the overage in lot coverage is due to a covered breezeway connecting the dwelling to the detached garage. And this covered walkway will provide owners a means to walk between the dwelling and garage protected from the elements. Without this walkway, the permitted lot coverage would not be exceeded, and covering of this breezeway will have minimal visual and environmental impacts, especially when you're looking at comparing it to, say, attaching the garage. That would have more of a visual built form impact when viewed from the water as opposed to separating it by that breezeway. As mentioned by staff, one of the existing driveway entrances for the existing circular driveway will be decommissioned as part of this redevelopment proposal, and that area will also be revegetated. Also, the majority of the existing shoreline buffer contains mature trees, which will visually buffer the proposed dwelling when viewed from the lake. And also there's additional plantings that are recommended through the Riverstone report that will be implemented in the development services agreement. I'd also like to highlight that at the request of township staff, the owners retain Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc. to evaluate the proposed redevelopment with particular attention on the proposed septic system location. So Riverstone compiled a water quality assessment dated November 17th of 2022, which is attached to the agenda for committee's consideration. The report concludes that the septic system can be located in the proposed location without negatively impacting the water quality of Clear Lake with implementation of the recommended mitigative measures through the development services agreement. Also outlined by staff, there's 2 letters of support that were received from neighboring property owners, so no concerns from neighbors. So overall, the proposed redevelopment will consolidate development on the property further from the shoreline than the existing buildings and structures, resulting in a reduction of built form along the shoreline and bringing the shoreline yard setback more in compliance with the bylaw as much as possible given the development constraint of lot depth taken into consideration. The proposed redevelopment will also provide an additional buffer to the shoreline. Overall, it is our opinion that the proposed redevelopment of the property satisfies the test for a minor variance application as outlined in the Planning Act. We kindly request that committee support staff's recommendation for approval. I am here to answer any questions, and also the owners, Amy and Paul Trays, are here if you have any questions for them as well. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Okay, thank you very much. And would you like to say anything? Matt? The owners, would you like to say something?
No, just welcome any questions that the committee may have.
We're in agreement with the environmental report, and all the work that's been done so far has been great. I'd just like to say we've owned the property for 23 years. We bought it from a family that had it since 1913. So we just want to do an upgrade here, and there won't be any changes to the shoreline. We know the property, and we haven't made any changes to the shoreline in 23 years, and it's not going to happen now. So we see everything as a net improvement.
Okay, can we have your name and mailing address and postal code, please?
Sure. Paul and Amy Trays, 186 Columbia Road, Barrie, L4N 8E2.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that application A 6822 Trace to permit the construction of a 2-story dwelling and a 1-story garage connected to the dwelling by a breezeway, and that 1-story garage storage building is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 4,025 square feet or 8.8%. To permit a front yard setback of 37.5 feet at the closest point from a 2-story dwelling. 3, to permit a front yard setback of 41 feet for a 1-story garage with a breezeway connecting to a dwelling. And 4, to permit a setback of 17.5 feet from a lot line abutting a street and unopened road allowance for a 1-story garage and storage building. 5, to permit a setback of 17 feet from an exterior side lot line for a 1-story garage/storage building. And 6, to permit a setback of 72.5 feet at the closest point from the high water mark for a leaching bed distribution pipe. These variances are granted shown on the plan attached to notice of the decision, subject to the following conditions. 1, a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of the vegetation and planning to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and implementation of a water quality impact assessment completed by Riverstone Environmental Solutions dated November 17th, 2022, and the subject property's westerly entrance onto Clear Lake Road be removed and the road allowance restored to the satisfaction of the Township Public Works Department. And all 4 sheds be removed as intended. This application shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
And the next application is A 7522 Richmond, and that is Ms. Gillen.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-7522 in the name of Richmond. Subject lands are known municipally as 1218 Milford Bay Road, Unit 7. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 299 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is as follows. The applicants are proposing to demolish an existing dwelling and attached sun deck, an existing detached garage, and accessory structures. The applicants are proposing to build a new dwelling with an attached sun deck within the rear yard and a new garage within the rear and side yards. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko of the Township's Public Works Department and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objections to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. There were some discrepancies between what was circulated with the notice of hearing for this application and what is covered in the report. Notably, the requested variance from the rear lot line for the dwelling is 19.5 feet from what the bylaw allows, though it is 0.5 feet different from what had been granted through a previous minor variance application on this property. Also, the requested variance from the rear lot line for the garage is 19 feet, not 9 as listed on the notice. Finally, the proposed lot coverage of 1,976 square feet or 16.7% shown on the site plan does not include the covered entry shown on the submitted floor plans, which is page 300 of the agenda package. The covered entry is 72 square feet and would put the proposed percent lot coverage at 17.1. Staff have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. That a steel frame tarp structure not shown on the submitted site plan, a pump house, a trailer, and a shed be removed. That a covered entry be removed from the submitted drawings, and that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Alternatively, if the applicants wish to incorporate the covered entry as shown on the floor plans, staff recommend the application be adjourned for a decision at a later date so that notice can be recirculated with a revised site plan incorporating the covered entry into the lot coverage calculations. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gillen. And I see the owners are here.
Yes.
Okay. We need your name, address, and postal code.
It's Terry and Trish Richmond, 7-1218 Milford Bay Road, Milford Bay, P0B1E0.
Okay.
We just like to say thanks for considering our application, and we understand what the asks are here, and it's not an issue.
Now, they did say there's a cover entry that would have to be removed, or if you would like to keep it, we can adjourn this and recirculate.
It was, I spied him with a plan where it was on incorrect plan. So since we have it removed, but I haven't spied and updated him with that one side drawing yet.
Okay, so you're satisfied that it's not included then?
Yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just giving you a chance that you can have it recirculated if you wanted that entry. But that's fine. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? No one in opposition? Good. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Member Bridgman.
So I'm gonna have to do this through you, Chair.
Yep.
Chair.
Come up. Yep. Come up.
Want me to come up?
Yep.
My apologies, committee. My audio isn't working on my computer here, so I'm usurping the chair. Oh, wow. Hard to see everybody on here. My question is about what looks like manufactured beach. And I assume that is going to be part of the revegetation of this to take it back to a natural buffered shoreline. So if I could get an answer on that from our planning staff, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Yes, that would be the intention of the recommendation, to have that beach revegetated with plantings. We haven't discussed the degree to which the plantings would have to be in place with the property owners, but that is the intention.
Needs to go completely back to natural. You could.
Okay, that's completely back to natural from what member Bridgman is asking. And that if the plan.
I need an answer to that.
Yeah, okay, we need an answer to that.
From us?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that the front of the home here is reclaimed lake matter. It's all silt sand soaked from about 50 years ago when they dredged it. So it's all sand out there, and we put soil on top of it. And that area, we haven't put soil to contain it. That's all. But if they're looking for us to do something, well, we have to meet the needs. We'll meet the needs.
Okay, well, it is a question. The planner can make note of that it has to be back to natural shoreline.
Okay.
Okay. Does that satisfy you, Member Richmond? Good, thank you. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Brown, and be it resolved that application A 7522 Richmond to permit a one-story dwelling, an associated sun deck, and a two-story garage with a storage use in the upper level is hereby approved, with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 2,657 square feet or 16.7%. 2, to permit a rear yard setback of 5.5 feet at the closest point for a dwelling and associated sun deck. 3, to permit a rear yard sun deck of 6 feet at the closest point for the two-story garage with a storage use in the upper level. 4, to permit a side yard setback of 12 feet at the closest point from the southeasterly interior side lot line for the dwelling. And 5, to permit a side yard setback of 12 feet at the closest point from the northwesterly interior side lot line for a two-story garage with a storage unit on the upper level. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following conditions. 1, that a steel fabricated tarp structure not shown on the submitted site plan, a pump house, a trailer, and a shed be removed. 2, that the covered entry be removed from the submitted drawings. And 3, that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and planning to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, and the next one is A 7822, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 7822 in the name of Feek. The subject lands are known municipally as 1090 Sunset Bay Road, Unit 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 323 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is as follows: to recognize dwelling additions consisting of an as-built screened-in porch and an as-built utility room. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, stating that they have no objection to the application. And comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that a building permit will be required to legalize the additions constructed without a permit. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions: that the existing wood shed be removed as intended, and that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have the owner and the applicant's agent here, which would like to speak first.
Hi there, Sean Donaldson, Muskoka Lumber here on behalf of the Fike family, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carlin, Ontario, Muskoka Lumber. So fairly straightforward proposal in my opinion. The variance for 0.7% coverage is due to the fact that it's a fairly small lot and within the official plan standards. And then the side yard encroachments affecting the eastern lot line the most, which borders the Fike family's adjacent property. So hardly affecting any neighbors at all. Here to answer any questions. Mr. Fike is here as well, so if you would like any questions answered by him, we're both here.
Okay, and would the owner like to say anything?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the members of the committee and staff for reviewing my application and appreciate your considerations. Agree with everything that was put in the report. Would like to get clarity on buffer if it's approved.
And we need your name, address. And
Paul, oh, sorry. Paul, I listened to the last five. I should have realized that. Paul Fike, 1090 Sunset Bay Road, Bell, Ontario, P0C1A0.
Okay, other questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 7222 to permit an as-built screened-in porch, a utility room additions to an existing dwelling, and is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, permit to permit a maximum lot coverage of 2,342 square feet or 10.7% within 200 feet from the high water mark. Two, to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 10.5 feet at the closest point from the easterly interior side lot line for a screened-in porch addition. And three, to permit a minimum interior side lot line of 2.5 feet at the closest point from the easterly interior side lot line for a utility room addition. These variants are granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following conditions. One, that an existing woodshed be removed as intended, and two, that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and is registered on title along with securities for planting to revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And I think at this point, we'll take a 10-minute comfort break and we'll be back at 10:30. Thank you.
Hey, am I in?
Yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Let me get the other members to come in. And we're just waiting for Ruth Ann. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to read this. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Thank you very much. Okay, and the next application is A8322, and that's land, and that's Ms. Gillen.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-83 of 22 in the name of land. The subject lands are known municipally as 1272 Dawson Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 344 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to construct a dock addition which exceeds the maximum dock length permitted in the township zoning bylaw. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko of the Township's Public Works Department and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objections to the application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested variance from the maximum permitted dock length be approved, subject to the following condition: that a satisfactory development agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's the owner's applicant, agent here. No, applicants, okay.
She's got her hand up, Sylvia Lamb.
Okay, and that, Ms. Lamb, would you like to come in, please?
She's muted now. She needs more direction. There she goes. Can I ask her to speak now?
Yeah. Oh, that Ms. Lamb? Can you bring her in, Alex?
She's in. She's in.
Okay.
Ask her to speak again to speak.
Can you, Ms. Lamb, can you speak? You have to turn your audio on and your video if you can. Still not coming in? Sorry, what's that?
Bruce Andrew is also here to speak on this application.
Yes, anyone else wishing to speak on this application? For or against?
No.
Hi, it's Bruce Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Your name, address, and postal code, please.
Yep. Yeah, I'm Bruce Andrew. Address 1262 Dawson Road, Windermere, Ontario, P0B1M0. I'm the neighbor 2 doors to the west of the applicant property. And unfortunately, I'm in opposition to this variance application. if you know East Portage Bay at all, it's that portion of the bay is very tight, and there's 900 feet of shoreline with 5 cottages and a public beach in there. And this dock would go out directly in the middle of that. I think it presents some safety concerns in terms of boaters coming in and dropping off skiers and wakeboarders. I also think it's an eyesore that it would be out that far into the bay. And so I really can't support that. I could support perhaps a 20-foot extension, but an additional 54 feet and taking it out 120, it doesn't, I don't think that's right. So I just wanted to give my opposition to that.
All right, thank you very much, sir. And is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this? I have a question. When the measurements of the water, the water depth were taken, when were they taken? And that's to our planner.
The measurements were provided by the applicant. I don't know when they were taken. They were just part of the application package submitted.
Because I am somewhat familiar. If you look at on page 331, there's a boathouse right beside it, and they can get into it. Also, there is an unopened road allowance that goes down to the water that people launch boats there, and they also can launch. And that, so I don't know what the committee feel like, but I would like the owner to provide when their measurements were taken. Was it after they've lowered the water level for the winter? And that, because I think you can get boats in there, and I think the right coming out 120 feet is excessive. And maybe the committee would adjourn this until we can get proper depth, and it wouldn't be this time of year naturally because they've lowered the water.
We can start the thing, the application.
Okay. And that the owner there?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Okay. How are you today?
Just fine, thank you.
The water levels were taken prior to the lowering at the end of the season. They were taken in early September. My name is Sylvia Land. My address is 293 Ridgewood Road, Scarborough, Ontario, M1C 2X3.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the members? Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair. You're good? Okay. Okay, so I think we're good now. I have a question. It looks to me from reading through this that the length of this dock is already 110 feet. I didn't see it in the report. So maybe Ms. Gillen can confirm that for me, the existing dock.
No, the existing dock doesn't exceed what's permitted, but the applicant had proposed 2 possible lengths, one being 100 feet and one being 120 feet. We circulated and spoke to the greater depth. If the committee wants to consider the extension to 100 feet, that's something that the applicant had originally requested, so you could choose to consider that instead. That's up to the committee.
Through you, Chair. So thank you for that. I'm having a lot of difficulty understanding how the other neighbors have shorter docks to Chair Edwards' comment, and they can get boats in and out. So maybe Ms. Land, you can help me with that. Do you have a special area here? You're on mute.
Do you have that now? The boat beside me is a pontoon boat with a outboard motor. Can you hear me? Please wait, the meeting host will soon let you in. That's what it's saying again. Can you still hear me? Okay. The neighbor next to me has a pontoon boat, and in order for them to get in and out of their dock, they need to completely remove the motor out of the water and push their boat out at least 50 feet before they can lower it partially to get their engine going and get them out. The neighbor directly beside me has the same boat as I do, which is a Mastercraft, which is an engine which is not able to be pulled out of the water, and they are not able to dock their boat either at their dock, which is the same as mine. Sometimes they have it moored out about 75 to 100 feet from their property while they're using it, and then they take it somewhere else in the bay to tie it up. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think that answered it, but I hear what you're saying. We've run into this at times before, but I would be more comfortable, Chair Edwards, if we could get proper readings in May or June and then come back and decide on the length, because I don't think I want a length any longer than sort of needs to be for a boat to dock here. So that would be my general suggestion. Maybe I'll put that out for discussion if you're okay with that.
The levels of the water are approximately 4 inches higher in May and June, and in July they start to decrease significantly.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm on Lake Rosso also. So
okay.
So Chair Edwards?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that member, when you had a question or comment? Yeah, go ahead, Member Quinn.
Yeah, it's a long ways out when the lots are that tight. It kind of looks like a fishbowl. You're out there kind of in the way and looking back at other people's properties, and I have trouble with this application. When I looked at also to the planning staff, I'm curious, when I look at the handwritten diagram of the buildings that used to be there, it looks like that Water's Edge cabin was a little further back or didn't have a deck on the front of it, and it almost appears to be waterfront coverage at this point. So I wondered if that deck was approved by the planning department or the building department, and you know, if it's the building alone or if it's part of the shoreline coverage.
So I did ask the building department about that structure. They said that as per their records, the structure was pre-existing. The dock may be new, so that's to the building department if they want to look further into whether or not they should have requested a building permit, but the structure was pre-existing. And it's just, I don't want to say it doesn't affect this application, but we didn't dive into it any deeper than that. We notified the building department, but we didn't pursue it any further for this application.
Yes, Member Quinn.
I think that's important to know the how we got to what we have before I can look at this any closer. And I think it's a long ways out in the water, and I think it's very intrusive. So I'm going to have trouble supporting this application the way it sits today.
Okay. Any other comments from members? And that would you like to see this adjourned? Because I would like to get the water levels checked in that, and see, because as far as I know, in that bay, and I have been in that bay, maybe not that close to land, but I've never had any problems whatsoever. And I used to have a very large boat in that, and I know people launch boats down at the on an open road allowance there, and contractors have been coming in and out of there for years. So would the committee like to see this adjourned? I don't want to turn it down at this point, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I would like to check in that closer. Okay, and that, yes, member, okay. So I think at this point, Bryce, did you want to say something?
I want to say something.
Okay, just 1 second.
Okay. Good. Oh, I think we're good. So just for clarity, Chair Edwards, we're going to defer this, I gather. And does that mean we're going to go out and do our own depth readings in this? I just need to know what we're deferring to. And I think we need us to do the readings. Okay, and to Member Quinn, I know I guess some of my background here, we can't formally look at that deck that's off that building at the front. I think Ms. Gillen has done what the building department has to go and have a look at that. So I'm really just focused on the water depth. So if that's what you're recommending, I would be in support of that to defer.
Okay. Okay, and that member Quinn. So we're going to adjourn this and that way you don't have to turn it down at this point. We've checked water depths and just to make sure. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next one is A 8622 O'Donnell. And that is Ms. Annette Gillum.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-86 of 22 in the name of O'Donnell. The subject lands are known municipally as 1258 Ferndale Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 362 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to demolish an existing one-story garage and construct a new one-story garage within the rear yard. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko of the Township's Public Works Department stating no objections. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that a sewage system exists directly to the north of the existing garage and that clearance to distribution piping has not been achieved. The proposed construction of a larger building within the required clearances to distribution piping is not compliant with the Ontario Building Code. The sewage system could be relocated to accommodate the proposed, however. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested variance for the proposed construction of a larger garage be denied. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And we see we have the agent. Good morning, Ms. Leisure.
Good morning, Chair. It's nice to see you in the chair seat again. You're brave, another 4 years.
Thank you.
Address. And hello to the rest of the committee. It's also nice to see Member Bridgman return in another capacity. So, and welcome to Member Brown. My address is 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. I'm the agent for the applicant. Mr. O'Donnell is also here, and he's going to speak after me, more to sort of the heritage and history of the property and his plans. I just wanted to correct one thing. We did actually speak to the neighbor, which is the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. And I believe I did submit a letter of support from them. So I'm not sure why it wasn't mentioned. But anyway, I do have it and I can send it again. So Mr. O'Donnell did speak to them and they are in support of our application. Basically, the garage is to be added on to, replaced, but added on to in exactly the same location that it's been for the past 100 years. The septic we're well aware of, and of course that's a building code issue, and building permit wouldn't be issued until we rectified that situation anyway. So basically the only variance we're requesting is for the rear yard setback, which is exactly what exists today. We wanted to sort of minimize any impact to the natural environment there. There are some significant trees very close. So we actually adjusted the length to make sure that we weren't encroaching on one particular tree, which Mr. O'Donnell will speak to. You know, I understand where the planning department's coming from, but I think this is a really unique property in a very unique location, and I think that should be taken into consideration. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lichter. And we'll hear from the owner now. Name, address, and postal code, please.
Morning, my name is Cam O'Donnell, 1709 Philbrook Crescent, London, Ontario, N5X 2Z5. And I'd just like to make a few comments to follow up on Terry's points. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to respond. I also like to thank the staff for their due diligence to date and providing a report as such. Firstly, the requested minor variance was specific to the rear yard setback and really didn't speak to the septic bed as we felt that was a down the road process in some respects, but I still would like to maybe speak to it because of the sensitive ecosystem that exists around the garage that is in kind of the forefront of our planning stages that we would like to make sure that we don't change the environment as much as we can for the protection of specifically an old growth pine tree that is in the vicinity that's roughly 300 years old and probably one of the last old growth pines in the area. So the ecosystem that has kind of developed over the last 50 to 60 years has incorporated the septic system in there largely as a nutrient feature for the tree and that area. And we have some serious concerns about actually having to remove it for the health and well-being of that tree. That being said, the current garage footprint sits very adjacent to the septic bed and has for 75 or 80 years and really hasn't had any negative impact, and it's been harmoniously situated there for that time. We're really not asking anywhere for an expansion of the building past the footprint that currently exists that's kind of constrained between the property line and the septic bed. The only extension is the front and the back of the garage, which runs away from the septic bed as it currently is located, as it is really kind of contained within that 18-foot area where the existing garage wall is on the north side. So even though I don't want to get too far into that side of the building, because our application really deals with the other side of the building. So the rear yard setback request is kind of contiguous to the existing setback, which has not been, hasn't produced any negative consequences for, as Terry said, up to 100 years. Our family has shared this property line with Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club for over 100 years. And both parties have always worked together on a variety of projects that require, accepted trespass by both parties. I allow the golf club to come onto my property to trim trees, to, help light features on the growing of the tee blocks. And conversely, the garage that has been there for 90 years, any kind of maintenance requirements or thing has never been a problem for either like painting the side of the garage or repairing the wood wall that's a solid wall, and any of the shingling that has to be done on the property. So I don't think that there really has necessarily been any issues whatsoever with the relationship between the golf club and myself. That being said, I am a little surprised that we did I did secure a full letter of support from the club. They're well aware of what this variance ask was, and they're in support of it. So I hope that you can get that into the files to show that they have no reservations whatsoever with the minor variance that we're proposing. The last thing is that also relative to it, that I'm also a member of the golf course, and so I'm in many ways more than a neighbor, and that kind of relationships of trespass or not is that I'm a shareholder of the club and on the property constantly. So I'm not even really sure if I am trespassing in that regard for relative closeness to the club. So that being said, I hope you see that we're just really trying to upgrade our garage with considerations to the environment here, not expanding past any of the current footprint that it sits on, and really, if there's issues down the road relative to the septic system, I'd be more than glad to accompany Sandy Bosses on site and further review and have conversations regarding the septic bed location, the function, and the relationship to the proposed footprint. So that being said, I'll turn it back to you, and I'd just like to thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Donnell. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? And I see Mr. Sharp has his hand up, so just 1 second, we'll bring him on.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Ms. Ledger and Mr. O'Donnell. For your comments. I do apologize that the comment that we did receive from Julian Cusworth, the general manager of the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club, was received. Unfortunately, it just wasn't moved into our filing system here. So I do regret any inconvenience that may have caused. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other? Yes, and that member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair. Good. Okay. Thank you, Chair Edwards. To Mr. O'Donnell's point, I'm actually struggling with why this would be denied because it's the same setback it has been. I mean, in terms of the Ontario Building Code, I believe the septic will probably have to be moved. Yeah, I mean, that needs to be done. Beyond that, I don't think I understand. I don't understand, Ms. Gillum, why this is being denied. I would have expected Public Works actually to come and say, we want more. We want more from the setback, but they didn't even have any objections. So just help me understand where the argument is from our planning department. Thank you.
So originally when we were speaking with the agent, we spoke about potentially requesting that setback be moved slightly further from the rear lot line. And that's when it was brought to our attention that the septic was in that location. So then we spoke to the building department, and in terms of trying to incorporate, I think the planning department's request to move it further from the rear yard and acknowledging where the septic is, we didn't feel that an expansion of the garage could be supported because of the comments brought to light by the building department. That being said, it is at the committee's discretion if you would like to approve it.
Okay, thank you, Chair Edwards. Well, I mean, if the issue is the septic, I think we just ensure that the septic is, and I think it's going to have to be, because it has to meet the current code. So again, I'm struggling. I actually support this application because I'm not seeing any reason to not support it. Maybe Mr. Sharp has some more comments for me.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. And maybe just to explain where staff are coming from with respect to the existing septic system, we didn't realize that it was there until much later in the process. And now we've received amended comments from the township's building official, which you've heard today, indicating that the building, if it's approved, won't meet the required clearances under the Ontario Building Code. So staff had suggested to the applicant that perhaps a increased setback of 3 to 4 feet from the rear lot line, irregardless of the letter of support received from the adjacent property owner, may be prudent in this case in order to allow ongoing maintenance and replacement of the building going forward into the future. It would ultimately be an increase in the setback, which would be perceived as beneficial from a policy standpoint. However, we were advised at that point that the septic system exists in the location adjacent to the garage, and that the garage couldn't be increased in setback because of that existing system. So perhaps it's a matter at this point of just hearing from the agent and or the applicant with respect to what their ultimate intention is with respect to the system. The application can be approved, but it would necessitate the removal of that existing system because it wouldn't meet the clearances under the Ontario Building Code if the garage is constructed as proposed. So I just look to Ms. Ledger or Mr. O'Donnell or both to clarify that point.
Sorry, if I may respond.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, through you, Chair Edwards. So the septic is one reason. There's the tree is the other reason, and it's also right there. So they're both. It's more than just that. And as far as the septic system, there's more than one way to remedy the situation, and without getting into the building code, which is. It's a very specific setback to a very specific part of the septic system. There are several different ways you can remedy this without actually moving that system and have it comply with the Ontario Building Code. So if you can do that and leave it where it is, that's what we want to do to minimize any impact to what's existing and the area around it, and minimize any impact to the natural environment there, which is very, I'd say, significant actually. And so that's why I sort of brought up that it's a building code issue. It is a building code issue with the septic. I appreciate that staff wanted a little more room for maintenance, but I think we've heard from Mr. O'Donnell that that's never been an issue and probably won't be. This backs onto Public Works didn't say anything because it doesn't back onto a township road. It actually backs onto the golf course, which is open space. There's a buffer of about 40 feet of just sort of brushy area, a bit of a berm for water. And then it's a service road that goes to the golf course pump house. So at the end of the day, I don't see that as an issue. And the reasons for not moving it, I think, are more important than for the extra 2 feet for meeting purposes. I hope that didn't muddy things.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Mr. Sharp speak again just
Edwards, it may be advisable, I'd say at this point, to perhaps adjourn the application in order to gain some clarity around the comments that we received from our chief building official relative to Ms. Ledger's comments. And once that clarity can be obtained, staff can come back with an update and we can proceed on that basis. I'm just hearing two different sides to this, and I think it would be helpful to collaborate and get all those involved on the same page.
Thank you very much. I'll let Ms. Member Quinn, you had a comment.
Yeah, so it would also be, I guess, good to know the state of the septic and how old that is. If, maybe if it's 100 years old, it's an older property, then maybe it should be looked at and being worked on and moved at this point as well.
I'm going to let and that Terry Ledger say one more thing before we do that. But what I'm going to ask you, would you like this adjourned so we can get this straightened out?
I think if it's helpful to committee, I would not be opposed, but I would look to Mr. O'Donnell if that's how he feels about that. I would say that if you're okay with the 1 foot setback as a general, just in general, the actual septic issue will be dealt with. We wouldn't be able to get a building permit without making it comply. So I'm just saying that there are different ways in order to do that. That's all. Maybe it does need to be moved. That would be worst case scenario, but I'll leave it up to committee to decide. Maybe Mr. O'Donnell has some comments.
Okay, I'll leave it up to the committee. What would you like? Would you like to adjourn this at this point? Would you like me to call the question on this point? Member Bridgman.
So Chair Edwards, you're going to be sorry I got my audio back. I know I'm speaking a lot. I am very comfortable approving this at this point, but if it isn't going to be approved, I want it adjourned because I think maybe the committee is going to be more comfortable to Mr. Sharp's point if we come back. Can we adjourn it just a month so that they can carry on with what they want to do? Okay, all right. So then I'm happy to have it adjourned so everybody's sort of clear.
Is that all right with the other members of the committee?
With me.
Okay, adjourn. Okay, so we'll adjourn this and get it straightened up, Terry.
Sorry, just one question.
Yep.
What would you like to see?
Talk to the planning staff after and get it straightened out with them. I think in that committee, and that would just like to see that a proper septic system in there and maybe and that prove it as it is. But we'll talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The next one is A 8722. And that's Ms. Gillen.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-8722 in the name of Simopolis. The subject lands are known municipally as 1800 Peninsula Road, Unit 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 391 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to enlarge an existing dock and construct a new one-story boathouse with a rooftop sun deck within the side yard. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko of the Township's Public Works Department and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objections to the application. Staff visited the property on December 2nd, 2022, and noted an apparent discrepancy in the location of the dock from what was shown on the submitted site plan. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested variance be adjourned at this time for the following. a satisfactory sketch prepared by an Ontario land surveyor confirming the location of the existing dock, and a satisfactory updated site plan be submitted if required. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the owner or agent here? I see we have Jerry Ledger again. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm the agent for the applicant, Mr. Simopoulos, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B120. Yes, I think the dock is actually moving away from the property line, not closer to it. So I think if anything, the variance would be improved, but I appreciate having accurate numbers. So we're happy to defer and have this surveyed properly.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to ask, is there anyone else in support? Anyone else in opposition? Okay.
Yes,
so-
yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. Are you able to hear me?
yes, sir.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jamie Boyd. My address is 1818 Peninsula Road, Port Carling, P0B1J0. I am a year-round resident to this application, very next door. And just a couple of issues that I wish to bring to light to be in opposition of this proposal. We have interest in seeing where the new plan will lie in relation to the existing boathouse that we have, and gaining access to that boathouse for the two slips that exist there. We also are interested to see where, once that dock is swung over to the east, whether or not it will impede on the 45 feet limit from our property line. We have 12 feet of kitchen windows that face the north to the Joe River, and that boathouse would impede our vista to the east quite considerably. It's a very close bay to where this boathouse is proposed, and I don't know if any weight is carried with you know, how these developments impede your view, but it will certainly be impacted by the height of this boathouse on the available view to the river from 12 feet of windows at the front of our house. That's all I'd like to say, and I look forward to the next meeting on this.
Thank you. Jerry, I'll let you have one more thing, and then, but we're going to adjourn this.
Yeah, I just wanted to address, hi, Jamie, I know Mr. Boyd. I just wanted to let him know what was going on, that the boathouse, the 45 feet is just for the upper deck with it, which would actually make the height less than just the boathouse at 30 feet, which is permitted as of right. So it's actually better height wise for your view than just a boathouse. So it's just for the upper deck is what the variance is for, but we can speak to that.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to adjourn this. And we're going to go to A9122 Horrocks.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A9122 in the name of Horrocks. The subject lands are known municipally as 1032 Oak Street. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 411 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to demolish an existing boat lift and recognize an as-built gazebo and dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 7 submissions from neighbors and members of the public have been received to date. 6 of the 7 submissions from neighbors were in support of the application. These came from Carol Lynn Stern, who is the immediate neighbor to the west, Doug Winger, neighbor 3 doors to the east, Ian Turnbull, neighbor 7 properties to the east, James and Kelly Cartan, neighbors 3 doors to the west, John and Sharon Tobin, neighbors 2 doors to the west, and Andrew Craig and Michelle Lee, 2 doors to the east. neighbor David Stephen, directly to the east, submitted a number of concerns in relation to the application. Mr. Stephen stated he and his wife Sandra are opposed to the relief requested from sections 3.5.4 and 4.1.3 of the zoning bylaw, being the size and setback for the gazebo. Mr. Stephen did state he is in support of the request for relief from sections 4.1.7 and 4.1.7.12, being the width and side yard setback of the dock, provided that the boat lift be removed. Mr. Stephen discussed previous development which has occurred on the property and stated that the property owners have constructed a kitchen in the back of the boathouse and believes they have run a water line from the cottage to the kitchen. Mr. Stevens said he believes gray water is being discharged into the Indian River. Mr. Stevens said the pizza oven, which is located in the gazebo, is used frequently and he feels it is a fire hazard and finds the fumes from it bothersome. Mr. Stephen is also concerned that his neighbor has previously built structures without appropriate approvals in place. He is concerned that the gazebo may not meet building code requirements for footings, electrical, or heating. His main concern is that the structure does not meet the setback requirements, and he is not pleased with what he calls a beg for forgiveness approach of constructing first and getting permissions after the fact. Mr. Stephen feels the committee should refuse the variance request related to the gazebo. The applicants and their agent also contacted the township to request adjournment of this application for the decision to be made at a later date. The property owner also submitted photos of the dock stating that it is the little bumped out portion is 5 feet wide, not 6, and therefore would not require a variance from the side yard setback. Comments have also been received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, and Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, both stating no objections to the application. Staff prepared a report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested variance be adjourned at this time for the following: a satisfactory sketch prepared by an Ontario land surveyor confirming the front yard setback of the as-built gazebo, and a satisfactory updated site plan be submitted if required. One of the property owners did contact the township after the agenda was published to also indicate that the setback from the water is not as shown on the submitted site plan, stating that it is 10 feet, not 2.5, and that is why we're requesting the Ontario land surveyor drawing to confirm. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the owner or owner's agent here? Okay, would you bring them in, please?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Mr. Muntz.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Chair Evers, members of the committee and township staff. Yes, we agree with staff's recommendation at this time to adjourn this application. As mentioned, there's just some details on the circulated site plan that weren't accurate that we have updated. It's just was too late to get it circulated. So we are working with staff to get those remedied right away. As mentioned, the gazebo is actually further away from the water's edge as shown, and then also the dock isn't as wide as shown on the circulated site plan. So yeah, we'd just like to get those adjusted and work with township staff to get this these details correct for the next meeting.
Address.
Thank you.
And we need your name, address.
Sure. Yes. Eric Muntz, the Dakota Group, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application?
There is somebody in opposition.
Okay, we'll bring them in now, then we'll hear them, even though we're going to adjourn it. You know? Okay, go ahead. You may speak now.
Hello, this is Glenn Horrocks, the owner.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to address a couple of the points in Mr. Stevens' note, specifically with respect to his assertion that there's a kitchen in the boathouse. Your building inspectors have been out numerous times to address his concerns, and there is no kitchen in the boathouse. There is no water line to the boathouse, and there's no draining of any gray water.
How do I switch the camera?
Into the lake.
Okay.
There's been several complaints that he's raised about there being a two-story boathouse constructed, and the township has been out on several times to look at that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
And we have Mr. Stevens.
Can you see me or not?
No, it's okay. Go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I don't want to waste your time. If this is going to be adjourned, then
it's definitely going to be adjourned.
We'll have another opportunity to do this. I wrote a very lengthy notice, which I presume is in your package, so I don't want to repeat it all. My wife and I live in the cottage next door. We are the only one. There are two properties that actually have visibility to the property in question. One is Stearns, which has no visibility to the work that's being done, and we have extreme visibility. So I think we have probably a larger reason for concern than anyone else would have. Our concern is that over the years, there's been a lot of development done on this property, some of which has not been properly permitted, and the township is aware of that. The question here is whether or not the Horrocks are permitted to continue to develop the waterfront area on their property as they have been over the last 15 years. And the issue now is not the development that's been done previously, but rather the building of a gazebo on the waterfront, which now incorporates the pizza oven that had previously been built. So our question is whether or not it's okay to build these places without a permit, and having built them without a permit, whether it's then okay to take what is a building that absolutely does not comply with the bylaws with respect to either size or setback, and simply say, well, that's okay. And I wasn't being facetious in the comment I was making about begging forgiveness. This is done all the time in Muskoka, and I think it's entirely appropriate to note that this is not a mistake on the part of the Horrocks. It's not an accident. Mr. Horrocks is a professional engineer. He's a real.
Sir,
no, you asked me. Sorry. So I'll leave it at that at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to adjourn that. And the next application is A 9322 Windcroft Holdings, and that's Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 9322 in the name of Windcroft Holdings Limited. The subject property is located at 1390 Rosso Lake Road, number 1, unit number 16. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 429 of today's agenda package. And the purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct a one-story boathouse and an associated dock. Relief is requested from the maximum permitted lot coverage amount. The property fronts onto a category 1 lake where the maximum permitted coverage amount is 10%. And the proposed lot coverage is 2,389 square feet or 11%. and therefore a variance of 240 square feet over the permitted maximum is requested. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 4 submissions have been received, all of which have been submitted to committee in advance of today's meeting. The Township's Development Services and Public Works Departments have both advised that they do not have any concerns, and neutral comments, so not in support or in opposition, were received from neighbors David White and Stephen Ferris, stating that an increase in lot coverage from 10 to 11% is actually a 10% increase, not a 1% increase, as could be implied from the wording used in the public notice. And they state that this could be misleading. These comments have been forwarded to committee. And I just add that the notice does not, that the notice also does state the magnitude of the variance as square footage. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. I have no further comments at this time, but I would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have the owner, I believe.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
My name is Sue. My name is Sue Lupton. Address is 4200 Grandview Street North, Oshawa, Ontario, L1H0J3. Good morning, Chair Edwards and committee. I appreciate you taking the time to review this minor variance. I'd also like to thank the planning department for their thorough work through all of this, so thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, my husband and I are looking to build a 1-story boathouse with a 1% variance, which is 240 square feet. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? No one in opposition? Okay, are there questions from the members? Any questions? I have one. One of the sketches shows 2 boat slips, and then on your informational drawings, it looks like 1 boat slip with a floor in there. Is this the actual intention?
Oh, my apologies. So would you like me to answer that question?
Yes, please.
Okay, through you, Chair Edwards. We have only 1 boat is all we require right now. Going forward, we're not sure. You probably noticed that we have a small lot. It's 0.55 of an acre. We don't have room to have a garage. We'll put storage of kayaks, paddle boards, probably other toys. You know, as life changes, we may then require with family another boat, but right now we only have 1 boat.
Okay, no, just thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? By Member Brown, second by Member Quinn, be it resolved that application A9322 Windcroft Holdings Limited to remit the construction of a 1-story boathouse is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 2,629 square feet or 11%. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you. The next application is A9722 Roy, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A9722 in the name of Roy. The subject lands are known municipally as 1061 Hallett Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 450 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is as follows. To recognize a 2-story building consisting of a garage within the 1st story and a sleeping cabin within the second story. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating that the reduction in setbacks from the road allowance can present future maintenance issues and increased costs associated with tree maintenance. Public Works would prefer that the setback from the road allowance be achieved if at all possible. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating that Hydro One has verified the overhead conductors adjacent to the building do not pose a hazard as a lesser setback at a lesser setback than required by the Ontario Building Code. And finally, a request for refund has been received from DeConing Group, stating that the footings were inspected and approved to be poured in the wrong location during construction at no fault of the agent or the owner. The request seeks a full refund of the application fee. Staff would note that the usual fee for as-built structures was waived at the discretion of staff. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following condition: that the steel-framed tarp shelter not shown on the submitted site plan be removed to ensure compliance with maximum lot coverage requirements. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Okay, bring them in, please.
Hello again.
Hello.
Eric Muntz of the DeConing Group, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. And thank you, staff, for that detailed report. And yeah, just with this application, we're just looking to remedy a garage structure that was fully permitted, but was placed slightly off from its proposed location. The footings were positioned and approved to be poured in the current location by the inspector, and this just happened to be 4 feet into the 25 rear yard setback. Of course, this is very minimal, and I don't see the difference positions. I don't see how the difference in positions would have a difference of impact on the property, in my opinion. And as staff has mentioned in the report, the setback to the actual road is even greater. And as mentioned in staff report, we are requesting refund for this application. The reason being is during construction, specifically at the time of inspection of the footings by township staff, the footings were approved to be poured in the location that they are currently in and were subsequently poured and construction continued. It was at a later inspection that the location was checked and determined that the location was 4 feet off. We believe that this was an oversight when the footings were inspected, and this is the main reason this application is before you today. If this had been identified prior to the footings being poured, they would have simply been moved into compliance. Of course, we have the highest respect for township staff and appreciate all the work they do. Mr. Snyder has been extremely helpful in getting this remedied for us as soon as possible. And I just think this was a simple mistake, which we can all, of course, make mistakes sometimes, and I can appreciate, especially when dealing with the rear yard setback versus front yard setback. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm probably more mindful of the discrepancy of a front yard setback. So thank you for your time, and I'll try to assist you in any questions you may have, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support or opposition? No, no one. Questions from the members? Yes, Member Bridgman, just 1 second.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just need a little more clarification on the request for your application fee to come back. Just help me out again. The footings were poured, and then there was an inspection, and it was off, but that wasn't caught then. And then it was built more, and then it was caught. But it seems to me that the footings and the first inspection would have also caused an application for a minor variance because of where they were poured by the contractor or whoever. So help me out on this. I don't I don't quite understand why money should be going back to you, to be honest, Mr. Muntz.
Yep. If I may, thank you for your question. And I believe the correct order of events was there was an inspection prior to the footings being poured. And then the footings were poured, and then construction continued. And then I believe the inspection for the foundation was called upon, and then that's when it was identified that the placement was incorrect. So I guess the difference in what you were saying is just that there was an inspection. Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, all the years I was on construction, I was always told that measure it twice, cut it once. And that I don't believe the inspector should have to be telling you where they're building, and they would be inspecting for the forming for the footings at the time. And that I can't see any reason to give it back. I'll leave it to committee. Are there any more questions or comments? Okay. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Quinn, be it resolved that application A 9722 Roy to recognize a two-story garage with a sleeping cabin with a second story, and is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a garage with a sleeping cabin on the second story of the setback to be 21 feet from the lot line abutting the street. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. One, that a steel frame tarp shelter not shown on the submitted site plan be removed and ensure compliance with the maximum lot coverage requirements. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. All those in favor? Okay. And I will ask, and that, is there any appetite to refund any or part of the funds?
No.
I don't see any, so I think you're out on that one, Mr. Muntz. Also, when you're bringing applications forward, show everything on in the future. That tarp grad should have been shown, and as planned, you should know that. We want to see everything, and that's why we asked for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your input. Appreciate it. And I'll see you all next year. Thank you.
Okay. And the next application is A 9822 1429306 Ontario Limited. And that's Mr. Sully again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 9822 in the name of 1429306 Ontario Limited. Subject property is located at 1184 Evely Road, and I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 474 of the agenda package. And the purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling at the southern end of the property, and the applicants propose to construct a building containing a contractor's shop and office at the north end of the property. Relief is requested from the minimum required setback of 1,310 square feet from a property containing waste stabilization ponds and hauled sewage lagoons. Although the proposed building is located greater than this distance from the sewage facilities, the setback is actually measured from the lot line of the property containing the facilities. So in this case, the building is to be set back 100 feet from this abutting property lot line, and a variance of 1,210 feet is therefore requested. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 2 comments have been received, all of which have been submitted to the committee in advance. The Township's Development Services Department has advised that they do not have any concerns, and the Township's Public Works Department has advised that if the development is approved, the contractor's shop should be assigned its own civic address. And I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration, and a condition has been added to require the separate civic addresses. And I have no further comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this? Okay, bring them in, please. Okay, Mr. Owen, in that. We see your hand, you're allowed to speak, and you can turn your video on if you like. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is John Owen, and I have the pleasure of acting on behalf of the number company you see before you, which is really owned by the Harry family. We certainly support and agree with the positive report from planning. I'd like to take this time to thank planning staff with their help in the past few months. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this application.
Did we get your name, address, and postal code?
Of course, I'm sorry. It's my office is in Uxbridge. It's 8499 Concession 6 in Uxbridge, postal code L9P 1R2.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here in support? Anyone in opposition? No? Okay, questions from the members? Any questions from the members? No? Moved by member Brown, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 9822 1429306 Ontario Limited to permit the construction of a commercial building is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a commercial building to be set back 100 feet from a property containing waste stabilization ponds and hauled sewage lagoons. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that a separate civic address be assigned to the proposed commercial building and the existing single-family dwelling. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And since there's no correspondence or any information items, I'll read the last one. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown. Be it resolved, the meeting adjourned at 11:40 a.m. All those in favor? And I would just like to welcome Ruth Ann Brown to the committee. It's going to be a pleasure working with you for the next 4 years, hopefully. And if you ever need anything, you can always contact me. Okay. Thank you very much. And everyone, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you.